As more and more teams get eliminated from this playoff picture, it seems like more and more of these franchises are less happy with where they sit with where their roster is. And so we're starting to get an idea of the names that could possibly be available for the Warriors this summer. Now, Tim Kawakami put out a list on The Athletic, and I'll link it in the comments. But I think it's important to understand when TK gives you a list of names, who Kawakami is and how connected he is to the Warriors organization, right? He is probably the longest standing sports reporter guy covering the Warriors, along with Marcus. Shout out to Marcus. But my point is, he's not drawing these names out of a hat. If he's bringing these names up, more than likely, they've been brought up to him within the building. And so that's why I think that it is a good reference point as far as talking about some of these potential names that the Warriors could acquire. Let's start with perhaps the biggest name, the name that's been thrown around, Brandon Ingram. He's on the final year of a contract at $36 million. I hate having to always bring up the numbers, but it's such a part of this, right? The value. Like, sure, I'd like Malik Beasley at the min, right? Not at 20 mil per, right? So, but we'll get to him here at the end of this list. Brandon Ingram, he's 26 years old. Here, you know, when you compare him to Andrew Wiggins, right? Because I think that would be the scenario. It's like, oh, look what the Warriors did for Andrew Wiggins, bringing him into a different role, into a winning organization, and, you know, the championship was won. Could we do the same thing with Brandon Ingram now? Give me a minute to tell y'all about something that I think can really help a lot of people, no matter what phase of life you're at right now. I remember being a young adult parent and trying to get our first apartment. And then you realize, oh, wait, I need credit. They run your credit and you're young, and how do you establish it? And eventually you get some, right? But then if you're like me, you probably overstepped with it and then you fell behind. And it took me, to be honest with you, my 30s to get right in that area. But now I have 3 young adult daughters all looking to establish their credit in an economy that, you know, let's face it, it's not easy. It's not as easy as it once was. And we discovered this app called Kickoff. It's a smart, legit credit hack. Download it on your phone in a minute. Plans start at as low as $5 a month. And what you do is you make that payment on time every month, and they see the credit bureau sees good habits being made, and it helps grow your credit, right? It diversifies your credit. And you can put it on auto pay. You can cancel anytime, and they're not even going to run your credit. It's really a safe way to establish it without the temptation of having an actual credit line that you're going to use elsewhere, right? And so whether you're young and just trying to establish your credit, maybe you're new to the United States, or you're a little bit older and you just want to improve it. Again, this is a safe, legit credit hack from Kickoff. So right now, you can click the link in the description, join over 1 million people building their credit with a Kickoff credit account today. Get your first month for $1 at getkickoff.com/alchemy today. That's Kickoff without the C. Get KIKOFF.com/alchemy. Special offer applies to new Kickoff premium customers for the first month only, subject to approval and only available at getkickoff.com/podcasts. Terms of offer are subject to change. At this point currently, I think that Wiggins is a better defender, a more consistent, better defender. Now he's been asked to be. I think Ingram could be a better defender than he is, but he hasn't been. But I think the separator is offensively, Brandon Ingram is far more dynamic with the ball handling in particular. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you ranked Andrew Wiggins as a 4, that might be generous as a ball handler. Like that's a weak spot in his game. I think we all see Ingram's like an 8, maybe even a 9 if you're considering his size and frame. Like he's got an elite ball handling, which allows him to get to spots on the floor. And then he's a good playmaker. He's got good vision. That's what I was impressed with watching him down the stretch in the play-in tournament and in that first round of the playoffs. Now, he really struggled. I know. And that's probably part of why he's on the outs. And New Orleans is going to have to pay some of those dudes. Trey Murphy, right? There's other reasons why, but he had a really bad first round against that Thunder team. Look, to cut him some slack, Lou Dort is a terrible matchup for a lot of people, right? The Dorture chamber. And it's just his strength and low center of gravity. He was able to get under Ingram's hips, disrupt him. But, ultimately, I guess my concern is he's cut from the same cloth as Wiggins. And what I mean by that is there's going to be too many nights where you're like, hey, does Buddy want to play? You want to play tonight, dude? And me personally, I'm tired of those types of players, where you don't know what you're going to get. But that being said, how dynamic he can be as an offensive player, as far as getting to that mid-range. We've been talking about the high release. I'll talk about Ant's release. Ant has some quirks in his release, but I digress. I don't want to get off track here. That super above the head high release with his frame in the mid-range, it can be, we've seen, an unstoppable shot. But what's more intriguing is him being able to play the point forward and set up the Splash Brothers at this stage in their career. The vision, the handling to do so, that's an intriguing thought, right? And so I'd be willing to take a swing on him for anybody not named Kuminga, as far as in the package. Like, would Wiggins go out? Okay, fine. Let's retool. Wiggins maybe needs a new scenery again for whatever reason. But I'd be willing to take a risk just because of what he could potentially bring offensively and defensively. Look, he's not a slouch, but we haven't seen that want to do so as much as you'd like. And so, yeah, I would be willing to take a swing on Ingram's for Wiggins and one of the young players not named Kuminga. Let me know again how y'all are going to feel about these, and maybe give me your rankings real quick in the comments as we go through these. Lauri Markkanen. 1 year left on an $18 million deal, but I think we all anticipate him probably doubling that, more than doubling that, right? He's 26 years old, and I know a lot of Warrior fans envision him as the perfect fit. A true stretch big alongside Draymond. Athletic enough where he's not going to get picked on too bad on the defensive end. And again, I want to go back to this Wiggins thing where we've seen Wiggins. We've seen Aaron Gordon. Karl Anthony Towns to an extent where they've had, even he's on the same team, their role has changed and then they flourished, right? Lauri Markkanen, it's an interesting situation because it was kind of the other way. Because with those guys, their role was reduced in a lot of ways, right? But then they were more efficient in a better play. And it was like, that's the right fit. That's the right role for them. Lauri Markkanen, what was he, the 7th pick to Chicago? He bounces to Cleveland. He ends up on this Utah team that's completely rebuilding, no expectations, young coach, no alpha leader, right? And so he's kind of handed the keys to show off his offensive skill set with no expectation to win. And so as good as his numbers have been, and I know people are so intrigued with him, what does he look like in that second or third role on a contending team with pressure and not as many touches is the word I'm looking for, right? And so I know that, again, I know a lot of Dub Nation wants to push all the chips in on Lauri. I wouldn't do it. I think that, and it's not that he's a bad player, but I just think that his value right now is a little inflated given the context of his situation. He was in an ideal role with no pressure, all the shots he could want. And he looks good. But I think if a team makes a big move or trades for him and ends up paying him, 45 per as their number 2-1, like their AB star player, I don't know. I think expectations and perspective may change, and I'm not sure he's made for that because, well, early on in his career at what I brought up. But to be fair to him, he was on a terrible Bulls team and a weird Cavs team. But I'm not as high on Lauri as I think the rest of the fan base is, and so I probably feel the same way about with Ingram, the Ingram acquisition, right? Any young player not named Kuminga and Wiggins or some sort of, trade with draft picks. But the asking price apparently from Danny Ainge would probably be ridiculous. So I'm a no-go on Lauri under the impression that it would cost the kitchen sink. How about Jared Allen? He's got 2 years, 20 mil per. That's a pretty good bargain, right? He's 26 years old. And on paper, he is really, a perfect fit, right? A true modern center. He runs the floor, he rebounds, and he protects the rim. My issue is this season, Jared Allen has officially made my all-Sharman team. Let me read you his plus minus in his 4 playoff appearances. -60, -33, -28, and this year a -8. That's for like the series of that year in the playoffs. And beyond the numbers, he kind of just has this reputation of getting punked when it's go time. The Knicks did it last year. The Magic knocked him out this year. And you say, oh, well, Alk, it's not fair. An injury, durability, okay, whatever. He's not there when you need him. That's what history has shown. And, it came out after the Cavs were eliminated that some of the Cavs players were frustrated with Jared Allen that he wouldn't take a pain injection to play through the rib injury. Now, that's his prerogative. That's his prerogative. However, you got to wear that label. I remember Kevon Looney playing with broken ribs in the NBA Finals. Like, we're seeing guys play through a lot of stuff right now. A lot of guys do. Again, if he doesn't want to put that in his body and do all that, fine. But again, you're all Charmin team. You're all Charmin team. So unless you get Jared Allen on some sort of bargain where they're just like, you know what, they fired Bickerstaff the other day, right? And it's like, all right, we're moving on. Then no, I wouldn't give up anything of true value for Jared Allen unless it, maybe Wiggins went off. I don't even know about that. I don't even know about that. It's the same issue, right? So Jared Allen, while on paper seems like a good fit, you have to, again, look at the context of who these guys are, what stage they are in their career, and why would a team want to get rid of a 26-year-old all-star center. Dejounte Murray, 4-year, $25 million per, so he's kind of locked up here. He's 27 years old. Anytime you bring in a strong personality into a locker room, you're running a risk, right? This guy is different personality than the guys we've talked about above. But that comes with the caveat or the positive that he's not like B.I. or Andrew Wiggins where you're going to be like, hey, is he trying to play tonight? Like, I don't know. Does he even like basketball, right? Like Dejounte, along with that big personality comes a flair, an aggression, and a juice to compete every night. And so while it may be a bigger risk as far as does his personality fit chemistry-wise in the locker room, I think when we're talking about these other players, he may yield the greatest reward because you're looking at a true second ball handler who can create his own shot, right? We've seen the clutch gene in him over and over again. He's got us a couple times. And then despite the conversation around his defense, look, when he wants to defend, he can defend. Like, if you're telling me it's a playoff matchup or a big game, I believe in him to lock down and defend. And so for me, like, look how the roster shapes up. Assuming we still add size in another way, Dejounte Murray is a talent that's just on the line for me as far as the Kuminga conversation, where it's like these other guys that I've discussed. If we added Kuminga to that package, I'd probably be upset about it, right? With Murray, it's the line of like, okay, I'd hate to see him go, but I'd be like, all right, I get it, right? That's the line for me there with Dejounte Murray. So perhaps I'm a little higher on him than some of you are, where I'm lower on a Markkanen or a BI, right? This was a name that I didn't really see coming. How about Tyler Herro? He's got 3 years left, 30 mil, 24 years old. And, if you listen to Pat Riley at the end of the season, everyone on their roster can get it, right? Like Pat ain't pulling no punches. I was impressed with Tyler Herro in that Boston series, as ugly as it ended up looking, because they were so depleted. They asked him to be a distributor and play point guard, and I saw him make reads, be patient. He's had some durability issues. But to me, he essentially is kind of like what Jordan Poole thinks he is. Ironically, they're both from Milwaukee. They both have that flair to their game, but he's a little bigger, I think, a little more in control than Poole. And let's face it, I think that the Heat organization probably has a lot to do with that, right? Like if Herro was drafted elsewhere, maybe he'd be a little more like Poole, but personality-wise, there's some different things like that. But unless like there was a weird maybe sign and trade for Clay, and so you get younger at the 2 spot. Like if Clay, it just doesn't work out. Other than that, I don't see like why they would acquire him, because he is going to be a defensive liability. You know what I mean? But he's an on the move shot creator, and he showed some point guard skills. He's young. So I wouldn't be totally out on it, but I'm not giving up JK or any of these young guys. And we'll talk about our young guys here at the end because I have a question about that. Moving on, though, Brook Lopez, he's got 1 year, $23 million left. He's 36 years old. And again, back to Kawakami, I have a hard time thinking he randomly came up with this, but he suggested Looney and GP2 for Brook Lopez, right? That would be a tough pill to swallow, considering those are two of the most beloved players on this team, not just with us, the fan base, but I think within the locker room. And I do think that Brook has slowed down. You know what I mean? He's still a mountain of a man, right? And I think he still has a presence as a rim protector, but he's in the twilight. And so, hey, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. Again, it's all about value and how you could get him. I think he's got a year or two left in his career. So you'd have to make that move understanding that. But who knows how long GP2 is going to play? I hate to say that, right? But, Loon bounced back towards the end of the year. I think Loon's going to be around a while. So it would be kind of a right now move if you got him. How about Jalen Smith? He's got a player option at $5 million, and Kawakami suggested, could you get him for the mid-level? He's a young guy. What is he? 24 years old, and he shoots the three. He's long. He's athletic. They do call him sticks, right? The question about durability and maybe toughness is out there. And what I would point out is, as the Pacers are in the Eastern Conference Finals, you haven't seen much of Sticks. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he hurt? I haven't seen him in the rotation, so he's not playing for Carlisle on this Pacers team that is deep, to be fair to him. But Carlisle has no problem running 8-9 guys out there, and he can't crack a playoff rotation. So I think that he would be probably a guy that they would fill that mid-level with if they swung and missed on other guys, right? Like a Malik Beasley. Well, I'm not giving Malik Beasley the mid-level. I'm not doing it, bro. Couple more names. How about Bruce Brown? I know the Nuggets would love to acquire Bruce Brown, right? But apparently the Raptors are going to move him. The Raptors, I'm not really sure what the plan is there. I know that the consensus is Ujiri is a genius, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. To me, look, I think that Pods can play that role. Now, will Pods ever be the on-ball defender that Bruce Brown is? No. He doesn't have those physical attributes, but I think that he can give you that same type of production in other ways with his hustle, with his IQ, and I think that offensively, he has the potential to grow into a better offensive third combo guard. And so, I wouldn't be opposed to Bruce Brown, but again, I think what that would do is take away from Pods' development. And so, I don't know about that one, right? How about Isaiah Joe, who team option, OKC, we all know they're going to have to start opening up the piggy bank for these young guys. And so I don't know if he's a part of their future. I love me some Isaiah Joe. I love me some Isaiah Joe, man. One of the prettiest shots in the league, without a doubt. And then he has more length and athleticism than usually pure shooters do. When you have that caliber of shooter, usually it means it's like nature versus nurture, right? It usually means they weren't that athletic, so they learned to shoot really well, right? And he's more athletic than your typical pure shooter. And so I really like Isaiah Joe. Now he's got a little bit of big game experience getting into the second round. I'd be liable. Again, it's not a big, but I'd be perfectly fine if that's who they ended up with the mid-level with, if they found big bodies in another way via trade. Last name on Kawakami's list, DeAnthony Melton. Another combo guard. He was in Philadelphia, but he was hurt. Otherwise, that they could have used him in that Knicks series on, what was that kid from New York that goes crazy? McBride, right? But I think DeAnthony Melton, I don't know how you acquire him. Is he a free agent? Perhaps he's a signee. Could be a GP2 replacement. He could be. Look, there is not another defender like GP2 in the league, the way he does it dynamically when he's right. But he is a combo guard guy that you can stick on the point of attack and he can harass them. He's better than GP2 offensively, at least more dynamic offensively. But, again, at the right price, at a bargain, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I wanted to leave you with this question, because as we start to discuss the free agents and the trade possibilities, I think we all understand kind of the map of what the Warriors' assets look like, right? You've got Wiggins as a big contract, Chris Paul potentially as some sort of sign and trade move. And then you've got the 4 young players and draft picks. The 4 young players, Trayce Jackson-Davis, Podziemski, Kuminga, and Moody. Now, to me, I feel like I'm most willing to part with Moody, not because of who he is and the player that he's been, it's just who he's been for the Warriors, right? Like he's clearly been the odd man out for whatever reason for Steve Kerr. And so for that reason, I feel like, all right, I'm more willing to part with Moody. But then you get into the Pods Trayce Jackson conversation. And, watching the Knicks in this playoff run, Podziemski has some Josh Hart-like characteristics, right? And Josh Hart has notoriously bounced around and finally found a home in New York. But my point is, I get the feeling if you traded Pods, you'd really regret it in a couple years. You'd look back and be like, oh, you gave him up for just as a part of some trade for this. And by the way, congratulations to Pods for making first all-team rookie. Well-deserved. There was the argument that one of the Thompsons was going to make it. I thought objectively, even though I can't be, I thought he deserved that first team, right? Top five. And so, yeah, I get the feeling like, listen, I get it. If there's a deal too good on the table and he is like the deal breaker, I don't know, it depends what's coming back. But my gut tells me the Warriors would regret trading Pods. But then the same thing could be said about Trayce, right? The same thing could be said about Trayce. As you look at this modern era of basketball, his ability to get out to the three-point line, run the floor, offensive rebound, great hands, that would be a tough decision. If they're sitting there with the big deal on the table and it's like, we want one of those young guys. You can choose which one, right? More than likely a team is saying they want one or the other. But right, that's a tough decision. And then Kuminga obviously is in a different area, right? That would be in the chip of trying to get a true superstar, and that's a different area. I think we all agree. But who would you give up if one team was asking, hey, we want either Trayce or Pods, like you got to give us one of those young guys in the deal. Who are you keeping and who are you sending? Because I don't know. I don't exactly have the answer. But yeah, those are my thoughts on those names that Kawakami threw out there. I'm gonna continue to cover these playoffs until the finals, and then we'll get into some draft stuff. I got a feeling they're going to buy in or perhaps trade into a first-round pick. If I know Joey Pockets, that's what they might do, and you can find that coverage here all summer long, as well as the Olympic coverage and we'll talk some WNBA, right? We'll talk some of that. We'll just keep it rolling. As always, I appreciate y'all. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.